Hello! I was messing around with the new ChatGPT technology today, and I decided to tell the computer, or whatever this AI magic is, that I'd rowed across the Atlantic and I'd written a children's book about rowing the Atlantic. And I wondered whether ChatGPT would be interested in asking many questions about it. And it turns out that ChatGPT was interested. So I'm going to answer some questions today rather than from the school children I normally answer these questions from. I'm going to answer some from a robot. So, question one. What inspired you to take on this expedition and row across the Atlantic Ocean? Well, I'd always enjoyed reading stories of ocean adventures, sailing journeys like Joshua Slocum, or some of the crazy hardcore things like Che Blythe and the accounts of Harbo and Samuelson, the first guys to row the Atlantic. I remember Ellen MacArthur's fantastic film about sailing around the world. So these things have been in my mind. I'd also once sailed across the Atlantic Ocean back when I was going around the world by bike. So and I like sailing as well as a kid, so I was interested in oceans and stuff. However, I never really had any desire to actually row across the Atlantic, mostly because trying to get an expedition like that off the ground is a massive hassle. It takes loads of preparation, it costs a fortune, and there's all sorts of admin and paperwork, and generally all the sort of things that I hate and am rubbish at in life. And so that would probably have been the end of it until one day I was happily at home pootling away on my computer when I received a random email from a guy in Slovenia, someone I'd never met before, a man called Marin, who said, "Hello Al, I'm about to row across the Atlantic Ocean in a crew of 4. Unfortunately, one of our guys has had to quit the team. We leave in just 6 weeks' time, and essentially you're our final option, our final resort. All our friends are too busy and they think it's crazy. So I've been reading your blog. I know you go on adventures. Do you fancy joining us?" So I essentially rowed the Atlantic Ocean with 3 complete strangers, which is a fascinating experience in many ways. There were some certain risks of perhaps falling out, not falling out the boat, falling out with each other. But I just thought, wow, when an email like that comes along, the best thing to do is say yes and then work out how to make this practical. If the opportunity for an adventure comes along, you've got to take it. Question 2. How did you and your friends prepare yourselves both mentally and physically for this challenging journey? Well, Marin, Steve and Simon spent several years preparing for the journey in terms of putting the boat together, sorting out the logistics, the paperwork, all the sort of stuff that goes into it. And I'm slightly ashamed to say that I just parachuted in at the last moment and skived all of that. So how I got prepared, I only had 6 weeks. So all I had time to do really, beyond sorting out my life at home for that time, all I could really do was try as get a bit fitter in just 6 weeks. So I borrowed a rowing machine, I plonked it in front of the TV, and I would just row. So or I'd go to the gym and sit on the rowing machine and I'd row for 2 hours. So I'd see people come into the gym, do all their stuff, leave, see someone else come in, do all their stuff and leave, and I was still rowing away. And the other thing I tried to do was to get as fat as possible, because on an expedition like that, you burn generally more calories than you can take in. So I wanted to try and plump up a bit, which was quite fun. So that involved me going to the fish and chip shop as soon as it opened at 11 o'clock in the morning and stuffing a big portion of chips into my face, and going to Starbucks, and it was before Christmas, they had these sort of revolting cream-filled, treacle-filled cinnamon Christmas drinks that were just disgusting in terms of our general health. But when you're trying to get fat, it's a good quick way to do it. Stuff a load of calories into you and build up some reserves for the trip. And that was about it. And then I was off and I just had to begin and go for it and learn everything else on the job, including learning to get to know my new teammates. Question 3, how did you manage to stay motivated during long periods of isolation at sea? Yeah, once the sort of initial novelty, fear, uncertainty, incompetence of rowing an ocean, once all that's gone and you're out in the ocean and you know what you're doing and you're in the routine, generally speaking, it is just trundle on, boom, 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 row, rest, row, rest, row, rest. And it's very repetitive. The sea is blue today. The sea is blue and empty today. Just so trying to keep motivated is really hard. So I had a Kindle with me so I could try and read books and help my mind escape, mind travel off to different lands to read of green hills and forests when you're on a flat ocean. When I was rowing, when we ran out of things to talk about, I'd listen to podcasts, listen to a bit of music. I was writing a blog. I was also phoning up schools around the world on the satellite phone. So that was a nice thing to be able to engage with and think about, and just take my mind away from just the repeating cycle of life out there. But mostly we chatted amongst ourselves. We learned everything you could ever want to know about each other. Talked a lot of nonsense, but yeah, I'm not going to lie, I did find it really boring as well. And I think a lot of adventures are just repeated acts of boredom and slight discomfort, which in the long run somehow metamorphose, they transform, they change into a glorious, exciting adventure. What was the most memorable moment of the journey? Well, some of these storms we had early on with massive waves knocking us around and the boat leaking and feeling seasick and scared and sad and terrified were pretty memorable. But I think for this question I will choose the first time we saw a whale. Just a quiet empty day and an empty blue ocean, and suddenly whoosh, there's a whale, and all excitement breaks out on the boat, rushing to see it. Where will it come up again? Just sheer wonderful magic and beauty. How did you manage to handle conflicts or disagreements that arose between you and your friends during the journey? This is an excellent question and vital to expeditions, particularly ones that are confined with other people, but in large, open, empty spaces where there's no prospect of escaping or getting any time on your own. Sorry, that was a big yawn. The way we handled conflict was by trying to be really, really honest with each other and by being really kind to each other. Now, I think being kind to people on an adventure is a given. That's an obvious thing that you must always try to do. But what is more difficult and unusual is to accept kindness. Because on an expedition like this, when someone offers you kindness, they're also kind of saying, I'm offering you some kindness because you're being weak right now and you're failing and you potentially are letting the crew down. So when someone offers you some kindness, what do you hear? Do you hear the kindness or do you hear the criticism behind the kindness? And what we worked really hard to do on the boat was not only to offer kindness, an obvious thing to do to friends who are finding it hard, but we accepted kindness. We said, yes, thank you. I am finding it really hard today. I'm weak today. I'm not rowing that hard. I feel sick. I'm struggling. I'm exhausted. And yes, thank you. I would really benefit from an extra hour of sleep and you do an extra hour of rowing. And rest assured that when I get the chance, when I feel better, I will repay that kindness to you. So offer kindness, of course, but accept kindness too. And just accept it as it is, kindness, and that really, really helped us. What did you learn about yourself during this expedition? Expeditions are brilliant for learning about yourself, and you tend to learn that you are not nearly as strong and heroic and amazing and superstar as you might have imagined you were when you signed up for the trip. But equally, by persevering through these hard times, you also realise that you are strong as well, and you are able to persevere and endure and keep going and achieve difficult things, and that gives you a lot of self-confidence for life at large. Interestingly, this expedition, by this point I'd I'd cycled around the world. I'd walked across southern India. I'd spent a couple of months up in the Arctic, and rowing the Atlantic made me realise that maybe I'm getting a bit old. Maybe I don't enjoy the misery and the suffering quite as much as I used to do, as I thought I'd do. Maybe it's time for me to start thinking differently about what travel and adventure means to me. Because we change, don't we? There are times in our life when we want to do this, and there are times in our life when we want to do that. What impact do you think this expedition had on your life and your perspective on challenge and adventure? Oh, interesting. I've sort of just answered that. But I'd say one impact it certainly had was making me appreciate the oceans more than I generally did. I think unless you live by the seaside or you spend a lot of time on boats, it's easy to kind of forget that this isn't planet Earth, it's planet ocean. 70% of the planet is ocean, and we depend on it so much, not just for food, but for absorbing carbon, for example, is vital to our battle against climate change, our loss of nature, and it made me just have the ocean more near the front of my mind and aware of how important it is that we stop wrecking it. You know, by the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Next question. What motivated you to write a book for children about your experience of rowing across the Atlantic Ocean? And why did you choose to make the protagonist of your book a girl instead of a boy? Good question. Thank you, AI. I wanted to write a book for children for a couple of reasons. I'd already written several books about cycling around the world for children, called The Boy Who Biked the World, and they were selling better than my adult books, so that was a motivation as well, to try and hopefully sell some books. But I also wanted to try to get across my increasing passion about nature and my concern about how we are ruining the planet to children, because us adults have wrecked the place. Adults older than me, and then down to and including me, have wrecked the planet, and we're doing pretty much nothing to fix it. And sadly, this then passes on the problem to our children, who hopefully are less stupid than us and will get on and fix the world. So I wanted to try and encourage a love of nature and a concern about the current situation to children as well. And I chose a girl for the book. I'd already written The Boy Who Biked the World. It seemed fair to have the girl who rode the ocean. But there aren't that many books about girls doing as the stars of adventure, which is ridiculous because girls love adventure as much as boys. So I just wanted to change that and make it a bit fairer. How did you research and incorporate age-appropriate language and concepts in your book? Interesting. You know, I find that writing books for children or giving talks for children, I spent years going into schools giving talks. I don't think there is much difference between writing for children or writing for adults. You're just writing. Try and write simply and write well and write clearly, and the same, try and speak clearly and simply as I would do for any audience. I don't really think there's that much difference. But I suppose the research I did was that I'd trained to be a teacher, and I'd spent a couple of years in schools, and I spent many years visiting schools giving talks. So I guess that was my research for writing books for children. What messages or themes did you hope to convey to young readers through your book? Themes of the book. There were a couple of main things, really. The one side was the adventure, that it's important in life to dare yourself to do stuff that seems difficult and frightening, but you kind of feel that if you could do it, it would be exciting. So and that you don't have to be an expert at everything, but you have to be willing to grow and to learn. So half the book's theme is about a growth mindset, and the other half is about caring for our oceans. How did you go about finding a publisher for your book? And what was that process like for you? Well, this is interesting, and I've touched on it a bit earlier, but I went to a couple of publishers, quite big companies, and said, I want to write a book about a girl rowing an ocean. And they said to me, well, no, because girls don't want to read about adventures, and boys don't want to read books that have got girls as the heroes. And I thought both of those statements were incredibly stupid, and that I should therefore just write the book anyway and ignore them. So I decided to just publish the book myself. And I've been self-publishing books for a few years now, just using Amazon's book printing technology to print my own books. But I don't really like partnering with Amazon unless I have to. I mean, you kind of have to as an author, but I'd rather be with independent people. So so when I originally started publishing books, I was published them with a little company called iBooks, a small independent company. And these days I've got to deal with them where they're sort of like in between a printer and a publisher. So I get a lot of, I can basically do what I want with my book, and then they'll print it cheaper than Amazon would print it, and I work with them on that, and they've been great about supporting pretty much anything I want to write since. So yeah, essentially I've just become my own person now. I have to sort out my own design, my own editors, and then work with iBooks for the printing and the distribution of the book. How do you collaborate with the illustrator of the book to bring your story to life visually? Well, unfortunately there aren't. Well, actually that's not true. This is I have a good answer here. So one question people sometimes ask me is, why is the book about a girl called Lucy? And the answer to that is that in the real world, my actual real life daughter is called Lucy. And so she became the illustrator for the book. In my real life, Lucy did the illustrations for the book, which is quite cool. And I paid her for her work, and yeah, so it's good to have that. But also, I don't know if you can see down the bottom corner, I got a different illustrator to help me make a sort of flip book, so that you can have Lucy rowing the ocean. And then the other bit of illustration was the front cover, which was an artist who has done a lot of Michael Morpurgo's books. I think they're absolutely beautiful. And I emailed David Dean, and I explained to him I'd really like to do the thing, and he read the book, and we both agreed that a good front cover would be Lucy battling a frightening looking storm, and then this boat here is based very much on the boat that we rowed the Atlantic with. Ours was very similar to this, except it had 2 rowing positions because there were 4 of us on the boat, but it's very much just taken from photos of my own book. And then just for a bit of fun, we threw in a bit of a flying fish, a petrel and a whale. A petrel's a bird, by the way. A bit of wildlife to add into it, and I was absolutely thrilled with the cover of the book. I think he did a brilliant job of it. I love it. Question 10. Do you have plans to write more books for children in the future? And if so, what topics or themes do you hope to explore? Yes, I do. So I've just finished about a week ago a book for children. I wrote this book called Great Adventurers, about my adventure heroes. Also available in Korean, if you're good at reading Korean. Yes, I've got a second one of these Great Adventurers coming out. Also, I really want to do a sequel of Lucy and Tom, a sequel of these where I haven't decided yet, but I think in the next book, Tom and Lucy are going to go on their own adventure together. I don't know where, I don't know what it's going to be, but I really want to write a series of books about Tom and Lucy having adventures. When I was young, I used to love books by a guy called Willard Price, which is about 2 young boys who'd go off and have crazy adventure. I love those. So I'm slightly thinking how I can make my adventure books sort of overlap those, and I hope that the themes in those will be about encouraging children to go on their own adventures and increasingly to try to help save nature as well. That's going to be a big part of what I write about, I think. Well, this has been fun. AI, we should do this again sometime. Thank you for your excellent questions, and yes, good luck taking over the world. Thank you very much. Bye.